Discover the best-kept secrets from the leading entrepreneurs across the globe. Learn from the greatest minds in business with the MyCoda podcast. Here's your host, Sam Payne.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the MyCoda podcast. Sam Payne here, and it is a pleasure to be bringing you today's show, guys, because we have got an incredible guest on board. James Schramko from Super Fast Business is just the guru when it comes to helping people set up and run successful online businesses. Now, James is operating at a very high level. He is helping guys within super fast business, but also for the more high profile guys, for the guys that you and me would know about, the high flying entrepreneurs I'm interviewing all the time on my podcast. He is actually consulting and mentoring them as well with silvercircle.com. So James is helping people across many different levels that are either starting out through to earning 7 figures plus. So on Super Fast Business, James gives so many details about all of his courses, the training he's got going on. He's got a great podcast, like a really awesome podcast to be fair. So definitely go and check that out. He's got loads of information on his blog. But second to that, guys, he's just genuinely such a nice guy. And his story is very inspiring because he started out like so many people have. But little things that James done in his journey, like taking a weekend trip to America from Australia with his last few $1,000s to go to a seminar, which a lot of people consider a waste of time and money, especially in the position he was in at the time. But the progress he made off the back of that seminar was just incredible. And he will tell you exactly what he took from that, exactly why he done what he done, exactly what he learned. And this is just one of the many golden nuggets that James drops in this interview, because he just gives so many little things that you wouldn't even consider. But if you just start implementing these, guys, it will help you accelerate your business to success. And I mean, take it to that 7-figure plus milestone that most people are aiming for. And James is just gave 110%. He just gave everything he had in this interview, guys. So if you are in a position where you are struggling, if you're in a position where you're thinking of launching, if you're in a position where you can't get any more traction, this is the interview for you. James is also an avid salesman, and he's got so many key insights into how you can apply sales and different ways you can sell to people. Okay, and not doing it in a way which is cheesy or like second-hand car dealer sales, it's in a way where you're genuinely adding value and people are just happy to come and pay you for your service. So I won't go any further, guys, on this intro. Pin your ears back. This is the MyCoda podcast with James Schramko from Super Fast Business. Good morning, James. How are we doing today?
I'm doing very well, thank you, Sam.
Good. Well, thank you firstly for coming on today. I've been quite a big fan of your work, actually, and been checking you out for a while now, so really excited to have you on the show. Before we start, James, just for the guys out there that may not be familiar with you, could you just please introduce yourself and what it is you do?
Well, James Schramko here from superfastbusiness.com. These days my business is online coaching for business owners who have predominantly online businesses. I do that from superfastbusiness.com and also silvercircle.com. And Silver Circle is where I have the high-end guys, a lot of experts and gurus who some of your audience would know get help from me at the higher level of their business. Mm-hmm. Before that, we were doing services like SEO and website development on the way through to this current model.
Awesome. And the theme of this podcast is all about business startups. So could you just take us back to when you first started out? What change took place in you that made you decide you wanted to become an entrepreneur?
Well, there are a few elements, but I was, like most people, had a job and worked my way up through the corporate ladder. And I started to see a trend with my clients. At the time, I was at Mercedes-Benz dealerships. And the clients who were buying the Mercedes-Benz were often business owners, not employees. And also got exposed to some great business material through the books that I was reading. And I remember finding a flyer that someone had. They'd been to an Anthony Robbins conference, and one of his business trainers was Jay Abraham. And I remember reading this book extract, and it just was really amazing, some of the stuff in there. And I started trying that with my friends' businesses and doing some side businesses, a few different ventures with friends. And I really got this idea that it was kind of fun having your own business, but also more sensibly, I wanted to get paid by multiple people. I wanted to be in control of my own destiny, and I wanted to be able to break through the ceiling that I had on my income. As a salesperson, I was restricted to what I could sell in my local geographic area for the company, and there were a lot of rules and regulations. And if you put a backdrop to this, there's a few other things. And there's one thing I don't think I've ever shared on a podcast before, but my cousin was right into IT, and he's a real tech geek and knowledge buff. And around about 1995 or so, he put me onto the worldwide internet. I actually got a home-built PC, and at the same time as my firstborn was in a crib, I was playing a game on the computer. I was most interested in the fact that I could look up UFOs and Loch Ness Monster stuff, which I was really fascinated with, and play this game called Civilization on the computer. And also I could find spy information on BMWs, up-and-coming models that were coming through. And this was important because in the car dealership, and at the time, my very first sales role in a car dealership was with BMW, the customers started to learn more about the upcoming models than what we knew were coming, because the factory or the manufacturer wouldn't share this with us. And I noticed over years, it was probably another 5 to 10 years, this just increased and increased. And also at the same time, my parents' travel agency started to decline as people started to book online. So I was sort of paying attention to all this, thinking I really should learn how to build a website. And in my last role as general manager, I got to take over the whole dealership, but one of the functions, of course, was the marketing department. And within the marketing department fell the responsibility of the website. And it was through that I was able to test and try some of the things that I was learning about online from the American online gurus at the time into the car dealership website. And at the same time, in parallel, I was actually starting to learn how to build my own website at home. And there was this crossover point where my own website had a bigger database than the car dealership website. And I was getting more traffic to my own website than the car dealership. And then this point came where my income exceeded my car dealership income. And that was when I was able to jump off the employment train and start the process of having my own business. And as you know, that's by no means the end. It's the very, very beginning of all the impending chaos and challenge and drama that's about to come your way.
Yeah. And I mean, what was that first? Was that first website Superfast Business?
It wasn't. My very first website, and it's another little side story here, but my very first website was jamesschramko.com, which is my name. And one of the reasons I got that is there was this girl who I used to be pitted against in sales competitions years before. We were like arch nemesis. And she had taken a bit of a shine to promoting herself and, putting her name out there as a speaker. And she actually registered her own .com. And I saw this and I thought, hey, I should register my own .com. This is like it was like an arms war, I suppose. And I have her to thank for that. That friendly competition allowed me to sort of make sure that I was level pegging with my arch nemesis. Yeah. So I got my .com, but of course, in doing that, I had to figure out how to go to a domain registrar and where to point it to a host and figure out hosting. And the other domain that I bought at the exact same time was my first business name, which is J6 Solutions. And it's a difficult one to spell and all of that. But I registered that at the same time. And that business came about because a customer of mine who was a financial planner had bought all these cars from me since 1995 right through to, we're in at about 2005 now. So for 10 years, he'd been buying cars. And he said, James, you've sold so many cars to me. You're a great salesperson. You don't seem salesy. My financial planners really struggle. Could you come and train them for me? Come and do a training workshop for them. So I went to my boss and I said, I've been asked by a client to train his sales team. It's in a different industry. Is that going to be an issue for you? And he said, no, that's fine. Just charge plenty. So I actually invoiced him $4,000 for this half-day training. And I used that money to buy a laptop, a Toshiba laptop. And that was the first time I had a computer since 1995. So, 10 years later, I got my first computer again at home. And it was with that computer that caused me, because I had this sales training workshop, it caused me to have to register a business name. So I went and, put in a registration application with the Australian government regulatory body. I got a proper business name. I called it Solutions because I didn't want to be restricted to sales. I thought maybe I could do management or something else. Solutions is good because my understanding of selling is about problem solving. In fact, in business, the only reason our business survives is to solve other people's problems. So I like the idea of Solutions. So that was my first parallel domain name. And that entity still controls the trust that controls Superfast Business to this day. I think Superfast Business came just a few years down the track from this after I figured out, what I was actually doing. I think it came along probably 2008.
Yeah, and I mean, it must have been quite difficult back then to, 'cause I remember when I was first introduced to the internet actually, and it's funny how things have changed since then, isn't it? Because I remember the first thing I was taught was you've got to be very careful about how you spell what you're putting in the search bar. Otherwise, you won't find what you want to find. And that was my first lesson on the internet, and the only thing I was ever really taught by my IT teacher at the time. When I think I was sort of leaving my secondary school by that point. But we was never taught anything what the internet was for, how we could use it. I didn't even know that if you was on dial-up, no one could ring through to your house phone at the time. All I had to know was spell everything right, and you'll find what you need to find. So if we go back to when you set up your first websites and stuff, you didn't have website builders back then. You didn't have the hosting companies that are around now. So how difficult was it to actually learn how to build a website back then?
It was very difficult, and I was stretching my cable to the dial-up port and, dialing in. It was very slow. Had my laptop on my lap watching TV after work. Just to put this in context, I was a general manager by day with a huge team, over 70 people. It was a $50 million a year Mercedes-Benz dealership in revenue. I had a lot on my plate, a big team to look after. So I was kind of tired already by the time I started this stuff at 9:30 at night. And I would try to figure out how I'm going to build a website. I don't know how to code, so that was difficult. There were some pretty janky website builders then, some WYSIWYG ones that you could kind of build it, but it had no SEO value. It was slow and difficult to link together. I tried to use Dreamweaver, which was the software you buy to learn how to build the website and to make high-class looking websites, because WordPress wasn't really a thing back then. And it was so technical and difficult, I just couldn't understand it. And the breakthrough for me came when I finally bought some software. I caved in, just gave up, and I spent $197, I think it was, and I bought this software called Excite Pro. And you download it to your computer, and now you could sort of build a website on your computer and then launch it to the web using FTP. And I figured out how to do that. And my first project was to build a demo site using the software to try all the different features so that I could see how this wizard worked and that wizard worked and what I could do. And then as I was studying about search engine optimization, I started changing the default layout of this software to make it more SEO optimized. And back then, it was a little bit easier to do search engine optimization by just doing some simple things like putting the name of the file as a more keyword-friendly file, renaming your images with keywords, and putting the keyword in the start of each page title, etc., building site maps and adding RSS feeds. So these things were all little additional modifications that I was making to the software. And it turns out that people started buying the software from my affiliate site, which was a demo site for the software where I'd naturally put links. Hey, if you want this software too, buy it here. And I got $49.25 commission every time someone purchased from me. And I started out with 1 and then 2 and then 3 and then 4 sales. And we're like 9 months into it at this stage. Just to stress, this is a slow process. And I was trying to teach myself everything for free from what I could find online. I wasn't buying any information, which was a big mistake. And I spent more time worrying about the font and the colours and the layout and the panels than I did about the sales copy or the offer. But eventually I figured out I should offer my cheat sheet, as I called it, as a bonus for people who buy the software through me. And I compiled this, firstly it was sort of these lines in Excel into a little Word doc. And then I turned that into a PDF. And then it grew from a few pages, 7 pages, 13 pages, 80 pages. It got up to 100 and something pages. And then I built a whole little membership site with videos. And I did a webinar. This is like 8-9 years ago. Did a webinar and transcribed it and bullet pointed it. I did all this myself, mind you. I had no help from anyone else at this stage. It was just me, and just slowly ratcheting up the sales, to $500 a month, $1,000 a month, $1,500 a month. Then the company doubled my commission because I was a good affiliate, and I went to 2,000 and 2.5, 3, 3.5, 4, 5, 6. I kind of got stuck there at $5 or $6 grand a month, and then a few other things happened where I was able to go past that.
And I mean, you touched on your experience as a salesman there at BMW. So, was sales always a strong point for you?
Well, I didn't even know I was a salesperson till later. I mean, I'd already thought I'd done most of my career before I got into sales because out of school I did accounting. Wow. And I wasn't a very good student at school. I failed my school certificate. I started at accounting at it was an associate diploma level. I couldn't even get into university. So I started that and got sick, and then I did odd jobs for a year, labouring, and I worked at a timber yard, and had a lawn mowing round, and I worked in an accountant's office on Fridays. And then the following year I started up again, and I did that for a year and a half. And then with the late 80s, early 90s recession in Australia, I was kind of forced to go and get a job, which was a big relief to me. It meant I didn't have to finish the course. So I actually didn't even finish accounting. I did really well in all the subjects other than accounting, like commercial law, business communication. I went well in. And also I'd done some work with my grandfather as a timber broker on the telephone. I didn't realize how important that was until later, but I ended up landing a job as a trainee, as associate debt collector in the city doing telephone debt collections. And I excelled at that. But that's not selling yet, or I didn't realize it was selling because they already had the goods or services. Now I just had to try and beg them to pay it, or else we'd serve them a summons and they'd go to court and we'd garnish their wages. So I learnt a lot about debt collection, and I did do a course at this time on a mercantile agency and private inquiry. So I was learning to be a PI and a mercantile agent, or debt collector. And then I switched to a finance company and did debt collection in that company, and I did really well with that. And then they sent me out into the field. By this time, I'm about 21, 22, and I was now repossessing cars for a living and asking people to make their payments, or I'd take their car from them. And that was interesting, but I still didn't think I was in sales. And from that role, I ended up going back in the office and doing credit, which was really boring. It's like people refinancing their car finance contract. And sometimes we'd have to go and audit the car dealers. So I'd have to walk around the whole car dealer and tick off all the cars and make sure that they had all the cars that they were financing from us at General Motors Finance. And the next job after that was with a tech startup called Vodafone, who came to Australia in 1993 to set up digital telephony, nice and early compared to the US market. It was already strong in the UK. And that was a complete startup. And I got assigned to a sales unit, but I was a stock controller. And my job was called regional administrator, which meant that I would be attached to a sales team. And I was in charge of handing them the phones and booking them in and out of the stock, doing petty cash, organising the desks and stationery requirements. And I had, I think there was like 6 or 7 salespeople, 1 sales manager, and a secretary in this unit. And there was already 1 unit. We were the second unit. And we were stationed out in the middle of a telephone exchange in the middle of nowhere. And that was still a pretty low wage then. I was on $35,000, which was a big wage increase for me from the previous job, but it was still not enough to start a family. And it was at that job where I realized we were going to start a family. And I had been hanging around the salespeople, but I didn't think I was one. But one of the ladies there profiled me. The HR lady profiled me, and she said, you've actually got a sales aptitude according to the DISC profile. I said, really? I'd never thought of that. I don't see myself as a salesperson. And when I had this this real emerging need to make money because my wife was no longer going to be working, and then we were going 2 people on 35,000 each to 3 people on just 35,000. It doesn't add up. No. So I knew I needed to go and make at least 70,000 plus, and I knew the best way to do that was as a salesperson, because I'd been learning from these salespeople. Even didn't know it at the time, but they were sharing their books with me. I learnt about spin selling. Some of these people were the best salespeople for the whole of Xerox, and they'd been taught on spin selling. They had given me tapes on Brian Tracy's Psychology of Selling. When I was 12, I'd read a sales book, which I didn't realize was so powerful. It was a Tom Hopkins book, How to Master the Art of Selling. But I realized that I'd always been good at persuading and influencing on the telephone with the debt collection. And I went down to the local Toyota dealer across the road, and I applied for a job there where they were advertising, and I got rejected. I missed out, which was frustrating because, I couldn't even qualify to be a Toyota car salesman. And then I went to the next job interview, which was at BMW, and I convinced them to take me on. And from there, that was the start. And I was 23 years old. I was going to have a baby at 24. And within a year, I was the number 1 BMW salesperson in the whole of Australia. And within 2 years from then, I switched to Mercedes-Benz, where I spent the rest of my career. And within a year of joining Mercedes-Benz, I was the number 1 salesperson in Australia. And I got promoted through to sales management, where I won Sales Manager of the Year a few times, and then General Management. And then that was the end. It was like either I have a dealership or I start my own business, and that's what happened.
Wow, I mean, that's incredible to achieve that 2 years on the bounce for such large companies, and you've obviously got a massive flair for this skill. So do you feel that this has actually been a massive contributing factor to your success with your online businesses? And do you feel sales is something that all aspiring entrepreneurs that are just starting out today should definitely try and get in their backbone as a skill?
That's a double yes. Yes, you must learn sales. It's such a vital skill, whether you want to call it copywriting, if it's salesmanship in print. Read all the classics from the copywriters. It's one of the best skills you could possibly learn in terms of return on investment. If you could have this ability to help people and for them to be willing to invest in you, to help them, it's an amazing skill. It definitely has contributed to the lifestyle that I have, because it's a high-paid profession if you do it well. It's a low-paid profession if you do it poorly. You learn a lot about people, and then you combine that with all the experience I got working for everyone from my grandfather in a small garden shed office on the telephone, like a very private small business. Yeah. Literally, it was just him and me, through to multinationals. I've worked for BMW, General Motors, Vodafone, and Mercedes-Benz. So I've got such a depth of corporate experience. And that's what's helped me, but not just me. It's what I'm doing in Silver Circle is really bringing that solid skill set to the table to up-and-coming guys like Ryan Levesque and Kevin Rogers and Andre Chaperon and Jen Sheehan and Betty Rocker and Keith Krantz and Tom Breeze, all these people who are able to just tap into that warehouse of corporate knowledge. And I've been in all the battles. I've got the scars. I've been threatened with a knife, threatened with a gun. I've had crazy bosses spit on me, threatened to kill me. I've seen the worst of corporate bureaucracy and politics and everything you could possibly imagine. I've seen it, lived it. I've been in the trenches, so I can just bring that experience to these up-and-coming entrepreneurs who haven't had the battle scars and probably don't need to enter some of those fights at all, because I can protect them. Yeah. And it's certainly hit a nerve with my marketplace where they can just tap into that knowledge. And one of my most popular presentations, which I just recently presented at Ezra Firestone's e-commerce event and Ryan Levesque's highest level elite retreat, and Buck Risby's Health Profits Summit was on teams, building and running teams, because if you're a startup, you might start up with just you. You could be bootstrapping it, grabbing a domain and sticking up an offer and making your first few sales. But that is not where you'll end up if you grow anything of substance. And especially if you want to sell the business, you're going to have the business work without you. And unless you've got a very tricky software as a service model, you're definitely going to need a team of some kind. And that's one of the most vital skills to learn. It's one of the hardest things to get as experience. And it is a big differentiator of successful businesses.
Yeah. And I mean, for the guys out there that may be thinking, right, I actually need to brush up on my sales skills here, but I'm not actually sure where to start or how I can do this. Because some people might be, well, I think half the battle is actually having the confidence to go in and present themselves as a salesman and try and sell something. So was this ever an issue for you? And how could you recommend guys actually go out and start getting some experience that's going to help them with their own businesses?
Well, one of the keys is, go out there and start doing it, of course.
Yeah.
The other thing is if you have a good understanding of what sales actually is, it's nothing to be scared of at all. I'll give you a link to a video that I made. It's like 25 minutes long on my own website. I presented at one of my own events, and perhaps you can share that as a good starting point. Yeah. But it really is not thinking of salesperson as that douchey, dirty, tricking type person that we all think of, the bad salesperson. That's not what sales is at all. Sales is just a process. It's simply a process of change from one situation to a better alternative situation. If you think about anything you buy, you only buy it because you think you'll be better off, whether that's lunch today or whether it's the bed you're sleeping on at night or the clothes on your back or the car in your driveway. You bought it because you thought you'd be better off, not because someone forced you or tricked you to do it. So if you use that motivation and that environment creation, then if you think of yourself as a salesperson, as a problem-solving machine, that's a great way to think about it. Your role as a salesperson is to go out there and help people who have challenges and problems where you know the solution and they invest in that solution with you because they're going to win and you get to get a fee because you help them win. And that's it. It's nothing to be afraid of at all.
Yeah, that's such a great way of looking at it. And one thing that I read about on sales, because I've been I love the subject of sales and I've read quite a lot into it myself. And one argument I read was you sold your wife at some point to marry you. Like at some point in your life, you have been a salesman and you have succeeded because you've either been with a partner or you've been married or you've convinced your brother to go on a trip with you somewhere, or it could be anything. And that's something that really stuck with me, where I thought, actually, sales is everywhere, but no one really realizes it because sometimes it doesn't actually mean handing money for a product or a service. So that's one thing that stood out for me and kind of relates to what you said there. So, and do you know what, another thing I really liked about an interview I heard with you with John Lee Dumas was the fact you travel to America to go to conferences and build networks. So one, why did you decide to go all the way to America to do this? And two, how crucial is it to be around the right people? And how did going to these events change things for you?
Well, sitting there at a beach house while my family were down at the beach and I was still working a corporate job and I was stuck on $5,000 per month. And I was watching DVDs that I'd purchased, which were on sale now. I'd bought Traffic Secrets by John Reese when it was like $399. It used to be $1,000. I got it on sale. It's like the run out of the Traffic Secrets 1 course. I was watching the DVDs and I'm nodding my head thinking, yep, done it, doing it, done it. Oh, there's an idea. And it's one idea I implemented and I went from $5,000 a month to $10,000 a month. Wow. And I'm like, I've got to get closer to the source. I have to go over there and get the information at the event. I mean, this is a DVD set that's a couple of years old now that's on run out. I wish I'd watched this last year because if I had, I could have made an extra $5,000 a month for the whole year. And there's a real cost to that. So right then and there at the beach house, I emailed my friend, Sean, and I said, Sean, can you... I'm just away on holidays right now, but is there any chance you could look up this tickets for this event, this underground event, and find out about flights for me. Just help me out. He looked it up, and I booked it. I booked the tickets. It was like, I don't know, $2,500 or so. Mm-hmm. I bought it through Jonathan Mizell's link, who was the first subscription product that I ever purchased. So Jonathan Mizell, if you're listening to this, you probably owe me a pina colada next time in Hawaii. The next thing is I paid for these airfares, another couple of $1,000s. So here I am. I've just spent nearly $5,000, and I'm going to go to America for the first time since I'm 12. I don't know a single person, and I've got to jam it in by taking a Friday and a Monday off work, or Thursday and a Friday off work. And I was going to fly out on the Thursday, arrive there the Thursday, attend this course Thursday and Friday, fly back on the weekend, lose a day in transit, and then roll into the airport Monday morning and go straight to work. Wow. It was hardcore. Yeah. But going to that event changed my life, because a few things happened at that event that moved destiny. And one of them was, of all the people there, of the 500 and something attendees, this guy, John Muhort and I entered a competition, and we both jointly won this competition, which gave us access to a high-level mastermind group for millionaires. And of course, I had to go back 6 weeks later, which was like the last thing I wanted to win. I wanted to win the Eben Pagan course, his $10,000 workshop. That's what I was trying to win. Yeah. Instead, I won this dreaded mastermind thing, so I'd have to fly back to Las Vegas 6 weeks later, another airfare, another annual leave. Just couldn't really afford to do this at the time. But the contacts that I made and the relationships that happened and the things that I'd learnt allowed me to quit my job 6 weeks later, because I was able to double my business again. I was able to go from $150,000 to $300,000 a year, and that was the trigger, because at that point I'd matched my salary.
Yeah, that's incredible. That's incredible, and because a lot of guys I speak to with their own startups, one thing they fail to do is they spend so much time trying to build their business, they fail to actually network and try and get themselves in the right circles of people. So that's testament to exactly why they should be doing it. So thanks for sharing that. That's awesome. And one thing I loved about your site actually was the fact you're so transparent with your numbers, and this become apparent with the headlines you're using on your pages. Like, for example, I think one of the one was, I'm James and I've made over $10 million in online sales. I mean, that's a punchy headline to use, and it certainly got my attention. So is this something you've tested with different types of headlines, and have you found better conversions to your products and services with this type of headline?
That's a great question, actually. That kind of headline, it makes me a little bit uncomfortable because I don't want to seem braggy. Yeah. And that headline was coined by a conversion rate optimizer. I actually paid a guy over $5,000 to go over my website and suggest changes to make it convert better. And he came back with some PSD files, and that was the headline. And even my copywriting friends kind of snicker at that one. They say, "Oh, James, you should make it well. I've helped my customers make over $100 million or whatever." But I'm just running with it at the moment. And as soon as I put that up there, we got a lot more opt-ins to the site. So I'm assuming that it really does help position me as someone that could possibly help someone if they're not making $10 million or they haven't been exposed to that yet. But I am looking at an alternative where I talk about what I've been able to do for my clients, because it does feel a little bit self-serving. But to answer your question, it's definitely deliberate. It's definitely something suggested by a conversion rate optimizer. And you'll notice other elements on that page, like first-time visitors don't get navigation options, but they get an opt-in offer at the top of the page. Yeah. And we do get a lot of opt-ins for that free course, which is it's as good a course that some people would charge for. And then we have a waiting list for our membership, which has worked particularly well. When we open the membership, we do get a lot of people join, and it's not available all the time because I'm really fastidious about onboarding people, making sure they get a good experience and that I can truly manage them. So I open it when I've got capacity to help them and walk them through it.
Yeah, and that's awesome. And I mean, we're running out of time, actually, James. It's flown by this interview, so we're going to have to wrap it up here, mate. But finally, have you got any parting words of wisdom for the listeners of the show today?
Well, gosh, there's so many. I've probably got an almanac full of parting words of wisdom. What do you think the biggest challenge would be for someone listening to this podcast? And maybe I can tailor it to that.
Yeah, of course. I mean, one would be actually getting traction. I mean, you're obviously very successful in what you do with Superfast Business, but it obviously it didn't start that way. Of course, it had to start somewhere. So, what was it for you that really got you the most traction when you first initially launched that company?
Well, initially it was really nothing. That's one thing. You're going to be writing blog posts to yourself for a while and podcasting to nobody in the beginning, and it seems difficult and fruitless. But there really is that phase. Some people worry too much about, I'm not going to publish my site because people are going to look at it and they're going to judge me. I'm like, don't worry about that because no one's looking at it. Nobody. No one knows you exist. Your bigger problem is that they don't even know you exist. So in the beginning, you could do just about anything. You've got no audience whatsoever. There's something to be said for getting on other people's shows to get their audience. Aware of yourself, faster way to get recognition is really just go and be on other people's shows. Today I was talking to my buddy Clay Collins, who runs Lead Pages, and he just purchased another company recently, or some sort of a joint venture. I can't remember the word he used, but anyway, Drip. They took over Drip, and he became aware of the owner of Drip from a podcast that guy was on, Mixergy, and so was Clay Collins. So by getting out there on other people's audiences, you will get awareness. Because I asked him, where did you find out about this guy? Get on other people's shows is a good start. But just be prepared to publish stuff and not get too much of a build-up in the beginning, but keep going with it if your stuff's good. And at the earliest point that you can, start surveying your buyers and find out what their challenges are so that you can really refine that. I mean, there's so many methodologies to use for that with the surveys, but I would point people to Ask method, which is Ryan Levesque's stuff, and do a deep dive survey on the real pain points of the market and get their language and start tuning your machine to that. And you'll get 100 blog post topics or 100 podcast ideas just from the language your own clients use. And that's where I would start. So in my case, I was really slow to figure all this stuff out. And that's where I would aim straight for now, is working with an existing market, get yourself into someone else's. And I did a lot of forum marketing in the beginning. I was a member of other people's forums, and I used to bring people to my own products and offers from the forum. These days, the equivalent might be Facebook groups. So get into someone else's busy Facebook group, add lots of value and get your name known, and get onto other people's shows and keep producing your own content. And over time, it might be this like snowflake at the beginning, but as it rolls down the side of the mountain, it'll get into a bigger snowball and then bigger and bigger and bigger, and it gets momentum. And then, at the point where I'm at now, it's only taken me a decade to get known.
Only.
And I'm still, I'm no Gary Vaynerchuk or what have you. I'm still like small fry. And there's so much I could do. My next move is to start publishing books, because I think that is a big loudspeaker to get more exposure into the marketplace. But I'm very comfortable with podcasting. For me, it's the most comfortable medium that I've found where I can consistently produce great content. I've done, 500 or 600, maybe 700 episodes. And over time, it snowballs and I get a good amount of people, a couple of thousand people every single day are able to listen to my content in a way that's easy for me to produce. So I can produce this content with 2 or 3 hours worth of effort per week. And it's great leverage, and it will remain so with the proliferation of smartphones and devices on the iTunes platform. It is a good platform. But the other thing to pay attention to, of course, is video. If you really can put yourself out there, use video as much as you possibly can on YouTube and Facebook, because that is what people like to watch, and that is where people are, and that's a great way to get exposure.
That's awesome advice, and tons of advice there actually. So, thank you for that. Because I'll put a lot of that in the show notes actually, guys. Because what James gave us there was so many different venues you could tap into to really try and get some traction. So I'll list all those in the show notes for you. And James, that is all we've got time for. Thank you so much for coming on today. Before we wrap it up, where can people find you online, and how can they get in touch with you?
superfastbusiness.com, and I reply to emails. So if you're getting on the newsletter, for example, or you opt in for any of the quick start guides or PDFs on any of the blog posts, and you get an email from me, you just hit reply if you want to chat. It's the easiest way to get a hold of me.
Awesome. James, thank you so much for coming on today. That was an awesome interview. You gave tons and tons of value there. So I can't thank you enough for coming on and just giving us half an hour of your time today.
Oh, thanks, Sam, for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. Okay, and there it is, guys. Another episode done of the MyCoda podcast. James, one last time, thank you so much for coming on the show today. That was an incredible interview. And guys, I hope you got a lot from that, because James just gave tons and tons and tons of value, a ton of knowledge bombs there. So, James, thank you for coming on and giving us your time today. Now, guys, it's a very exciting time for me because I've teamed up with a guy called Greg Isaacs. Now, you may not be familiar with Greg, but he is a transformational speaker. He has been helping people for the past 20 years transform their lives by speaking to them and teaching them the laws of success and how they can apply them to their own life to go and achieve their goals. Okay, now he takes motivational speaking from where it is now to another level, and he's not like any other motivational speaker I've ever heard. He gives practical advice you can take away and use to literally transform your life. And me and Greg have teamed up, and we've got the High Performance One program now. The High Performance One program is designed to literally take you from where you are now to where you've envisioned yourself being in the next 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. We will help you achieve your goals and dreams, okay? This program is designed for the aspiring entrepreneur, for the guys out there who are literally trying to go out and do their own thing. This program is designed for sportsmen. If you're in a particular sport that you're trying to excel at, this program is for you. It helps you unlock your true potential, guys. Now, we have got our first ever seminar at the end of this month. I'm so excited for this, guys. The 29th of October 2016 from 10 till 12 in the morning. We will be recording this seminar, okay, but we will not give you the whole thing. We'll give you snippets. If you want to come and see this, guys, you must book a ticket. You must come and see what's going on and feel it live. You cannot replace the energy you're going to feel in that room that day. It's going to be absolutely incredible. There's a link in the show notes below, guys, to higherperformance1.com. Now, jump on that, guys. You can check out Greg. You can check out the work we're doing. Greg is going to be getting you in that zone, in a place where mentally you are ready to just excel at whatever it is you choose to do. I'm going to come in. I'm going to help you lay the foundations of a startup, of a successful startup company, guys. So together with other speakers that are coming along on a day, we are going to help you go from where you are now to where you want to be, and we will get you there so much quicker than what if you would done it by yourself. You can tell I'm so excited about this, guys. So check that link out. Also, check the sales link out, the sales video link that James has put up from his site. He mentioned it in the interview, guys, and the link for that will be in the show notes below. So if you want to have a look at how James teaches sales to the guys in his programs, jump on that link too. And that is it, guys. Thank you so much for joining us today for the MyCoda podcast. As usual, it is an absolute pleasure to be delivering this content for you guys. Hope you have a fantastic week. Check the link out to the High Performance One program. See what we're all about, and I'll see you next week for the MyCoda podcast.